you're surrounded with those people constantly. Like, how can't you not be better, right? Like, I'm making like 7 podcasts a week, whatever, and I see someone else like kicking my ass and writing 4 more articles than me and doing all this stuff, and I'm just like, holy shit, how do I get better? How do I execute better? And like that is Bitcoin. And if iron sharpens iron, if you want to start getting really, really sharp, check out the Bitcoin community.
Hello, everyone. I'm John Schno, and welcome to episode 7 of the Bitcoin Path podcast. This is a show where we have deeper conversations about Bitcoin and self-sovereignty, about how this new magic internet money is changing the world and changing ourselves at the same time. I'm thrilled to introduce CK for today's pod. CK is a prolific content creator for the Bitcoin Magazine. He's host of the Bitcoin Magazine podcast. He's host of the FedWatch podcast with Ansel Lindner, as well as host of the POV Crypto Podcast, where he is the token Bitcoiner. CK and I have a really intense conversation as we talk about conspiracies and social engineering attacks, and how, even though many of those things may be a part of our world, the tendency to focus on them in a defeatist way, and to feel as though you're powerless in the face of them is a really toxic mentality. And we talk about that loser mindset and the victim mentality that comes along with many libertarian ideologies, and just how easy it might be to fall prey to that kind of thinking and to really call it out in ourselves and in others. We talk about how the money you adopt, it affects every single aspect of your life. And one of the things that CK likes to point out is just how iron sharpens iron, and how orienting around Bitcoin challenges us to improve ourselves and to improve our work. We talk about how a orientation around Bitcoin is truly a closer orientation to reality. And that's something that obviously many of us Bitcoiners recognize, but points out some observations that orientation is starting to propagate into the mainstream and into the world around us. We talk about why CK is always trying to question reality and what he means by a know-nothing worldview. We talk about Bitcoin maximalism and CK's take on the role of shitcoins in the world of Bitcoin. It was a true privilege to talk with CK, and I really hope you enjoy this conversation. I do apologize in advance for the crappy audio on my end. The cleaners ended up coming into my folks' house right as we started to record this. I was back home for Thanksgiving dinner, and I didn't have my mic hooked up properly, but we did get an audio recorded, and it's there. You can hear the conversation. You can hear us talk about everything. So audio quality isn't really on point, but this is an iterative process, so I appreciate you guys bearing with me here, and I hope you enjoy it. So with that, I'll let us get into this conversation with CK. CK, welcome to the show.
John, thank you for having me, man. I'm excited.
I'm excited too. It's always fun to get on with another crazy Bitcoiner and just kind of shoot the shit.
It's absolutely awesome. That's what I live for. I got my coffee.
Yeah, bro. So real quick, just as an introduction to yourself, can we just give me a brief introduction to your journey in Bitcoin, like what brought you to it?
Sure. So I'm CK at CK Snarks on Twitter, and prolific content creator, and I actually manage BitcoinMagazine.com right now. And I got into crypto in Bitcoin in particular in 2017, in like August timeframe. My really good friend who had worked with me in a startup in the Bay Area, she was like, "Hey, have you heard about Bitcoin? It's going crazy right now. It's the best investment I've ever made." And at that point, I'd listened or like heard about Bitcoin multiple times, but I never truly looked it up. Like not once, never actually gave it the time of day. I was just like, oh, crypto, whatever. It just went over my head, But on her advice, I really, kind of started doing some research. And 2 weeks after she had told me, like, hey, you should look up Bitcoin, I was driving up to a wedding in Mount Shasta all by myself. And from the Bay Area to Mount Shasta is about a 4 hour drive. So all the way there and then all the way back, I binge listened to every single Laurishin episode, from start to where she was at, like on double speed. So I think I must have listened to like 30 episodes. It was pretty intense. And at that point, I was like, holy shit, like this is the new system for the world. Like the world is going to reorganize around this. I went on the Coinbase. I bought $500 of Bitcoin, $300 of Ethereum, $80 worth of Litecoin. And then, and yeah, that's how I got started. I feel really lucky though, because I really quickly formed a really strong kind of like circle of people that were interested in crypto from my life, my real life. And we had really good conversation around it. And I also, kind of being a contrarian, this was like during peak token mania and people were going crazy over all this stuff. As a contrarian, I was like, wait, what's wrong with like this can't be all unicorns and dreamland, like people raising crazy amounts of money. These are shitty startups. I've worked for startups. Like these can't all be what they're made up to be. So I started like trying to see like what's wrong with tokens, like what's wrong with Ethereum, what's wrong with Bitcoin, try to find some more negative or constructive discourse about that. And I quickly found Bitcoin maximalists on Twitter and on YouTube and stuff like that. And so within 3 months of like kind of going down the crypto rabbit hole, kind of right before the S2F hard fork, I was full Bitcoin maximalist. Like I had not only onboarded onto crypto, but then I had just moved straight into Bitcoin maximalism. So yeah, by the hard fork date around, I guess like November-ish, I was already full maximalist. And then by February 2018, I started working for Bitcoin Magazine. So I went to the North American Bitcoin Conference in January, met the Bitcoin Magazine team there. I was trying to like hustle, get a job. And by February, I started working for Bitcoin Magazine, and I've been there ever since. And slowly, did event sales, did podcasts. Now I'm the product manager for BitcoinMagazine.com, and really excited to lead the team into the bull market.
Yeah, man, that's great. That's fucking exciting. So you described how you're getting involved in just trying to understand the crypto space, and then you were drawn to Bitcoin as a Bitcoin maximalist. So what exactly was it about Bitcoin that really solidified that for you? Like you had that period of learning, and then you were seeing all these tokens pop up and just sort of wondering what might be wrong about things. So in your search of like trying to find out what's wrong, what was it about Bitcoin that changed that for you?
Yeah, well, I mean, I really was kind of already convinced by Bitcoin, and I was already convinced by Ethereum. I was really very skeptical of the tokens.
Okay.
And it was in the search of like what's wrong with the tokens that it really solidified like Bitcoin maximalism. I would say now I would say I'm Bitcoin enlightened, if you will. I definitely have some very unpopular opinions defending altcoins. But in general, yeah, I don't know. For me, like I was already like into personal finance. I was already into playing the credit card game. Like I was primed, and I was already working in technology, like doing technology sales and doing software sales. So I was just primed and ready to like understand open source digital cash. Like when I discovered it, like Bitcoin made sense immediately. The process was more like, why does the other stuff not make sense? And so, yeah.
Yeah, that makes sense. It's really interesting how when different people are coming at this, depending on their background, they're going to either connect with different parts of it or just not get it at all. And I'm coming at it. I had more of a background in just sort of the libertarian, anarchist ideological bent, where I was just like wanting freedom in every aspect of my life and wondering, you know, and asking questions about how the system is actually working right now. And that led me further and further into Bitcoin. And once I found Bitcoin, it's like, holy shit, this is insane. But I imagine,
Bitcoin is way more libertarian than being a libertarian.
Yeah, it's it's like that's what frustrated me so much about libertarianism was it just became all these podcasts are like people coming and talking about freedom and complaining about the government and complaining about all these crazy problems going on.
You know what's crazy is that same brand of libertarian became beat cashers because they're just used to doing nothing and losing and complaining and like playing a losing game, you know? Whereas like Bitcoin is about like, hey, we want to take down the government. We want to make the government irrelevant. Let's strip away the power from the money printer by innovating rather than like, let's get elected and lose or run for election and lose like a pathetic, you know, chump, you know, third place. Like that's not what Bitcoin's about. Bitcoin's about innovating to obsolete the old system.
Yeah, that's really powerful. Where you're transitioning into this whole other way of looking at the world from Bitcoin's perspective, rather than you know, trying to like tell everyone about it, trying to convert everyone. Like, no, like this is we have to establish freedom and use the existing systems.
Yeah, no, Bitcoin's converting people way into libertarian ideals way better than any libertarian party or political organization ever could. Like in way more efficiently. Like think about what Bitcoin has. Like Michael Saylor gave Bitcoin hope.com for free. Like, and then just like think about all the free stuff that Bitcoin is just getting because people are incentivized to further Bitcoin's cause once they understand and hold it. Like its viral nature is insane when you start trying to like understand it, like how it actually operates.
Right. So kind of along those lines, I see this space developing so rapidly. Bitcoin is, like you said, coming into a lot of these larger institutions now, and some of these bigger names are getting into it. But there's also all of these macro developments in the world happening, and you guys at Bitcoin Magazine do a really good job at aggregating so much of this information and kind of keeping track of things. So I just wonder, like, what's that like? How do you prioritize the information flow and things like that, and keep true to like the Bitcoin ethos or whatever?
It's really, really hard, especially because there's so much information. And I think what the block and CoinDesk do, and we don't compete with them at all. They essentially, they're news organizations and they're there to publish new stuff that comes out. Our job is, rather than just publishing what's happening, is like seeing all the stuff that's happened. One, filter out everything that's not tangential to Bitcoin specifically. And then from there, filter out what we need to like talk about and what we have bandwidth to talk about. And that's not easy because just it's really a no game rather than a scaling the yes game, which is I think what the other like news companies are doing. So I don't know, it's fun. We're getting better at it. I'm actually pretty new to the role of kind of leading that effort. But we've brought on some awesome advisors and folks that are kind of helping us on a day-to-day basis, just trying to make it happen. So expect more and better things too. So I'm glad that you like what we're doing and we're trying to get better.
Yeah, it's great. I do. You know, I came into truly focusing on Bitcoin probably about a year ago. I got really bought into it, and then just sort of sat in on Twitter.
To do it.
Yeah, man. I mean, I'd known about
Just
Bitcoin
a lot of
for
pain.
a while. Well, I bought in probably around a little bit around 2017, but then I wasn't really involved, but I just was really just watching from the outside for a lot of it. But 2020, I think a lot of us are coming into it now pretty hard.
Yeah, it just makes sense. And like there's people are like turned to conspiracies and stuff like that. And I think you pinged me about wanting to talk about conspiracy theories. But like people know that there's something wrong. People know that there's something amiss, that they're being fucked with. So people are searching for answers. And I think a lot of people are going to be like, wow, Bitcoin makes sense, because Bitcoin makes sense. And Bitcoin is just, it's pure. It's not, it can't be tainted. And I think it's just going to start making sense to a lot of people.
Yeah, 100%. So with that, I really like what you said about conspiracy theories. It was on one of your last FedWatch episodes.
Yeah, with Ansel.
Yeah, how you were saying that, it's important to keep an open mind and not be completely closed off to everything, but you also don't want to build beliefs upon falsities or unproven things. I wonder what are some conspiracies that you think have more validity, or that like, deserve a little attention or a little more investigative effort?
Well, I wouldn't even I don't think I necessarily subscribe to any conspiracy, but I do think that both political parties are corrupt. I would not be shocked that Russia did fuck with us. And I'm sure that a lot of other countries are doing social engineering attacks against us. And we're doing the same as the United States. We're social engineering other countries. And I would not be surprised if, there's some fuckery with the ballots and the mail-in ballots. Like, I've done that process, and I'm telling you, it's very short of cryptographic security.
Right.
I think that anything is on the table for how the world is fucked up right now and how people are manipulating this centralized top-down system, because the system enables that. And that's why I'm an advocate of Bitcoin. And then in general, I just see so many sheeple who just, what happens affects them. This is true. Now I must act this way. This is fact, without ever questioning, without going second, third, fourth order effects. And people just don't think in second, third, fourth order effects. It's really hard. You have to train yourself. People think in how do I solve this now? Or how do I make this not immediately an issue for me? And maybe that's just a fiat thing, because fiat incentivizes short-term thinking and maybe a standard that is less inflationary and less depreciating would incentivize different activity. So maybe that's a conspiracy theory. I believe that there is that fiat money affects human behavior and human action and influences us to behave in a certain way that is incompatible with reality. I don't know if that's a conspiracy, but I definitely believe that.
Yeah. Well, the way I think about conspiracy theories is they're groups of people have always conspired to acquire power and to manipulate large portions of people. So I don't think that it's completely out of the question to think that that's possible. But I do kind of circling back to one of the things that we were talking about earlier with the whole libertarian movement, where they're really identifying with all these problems and kind of trying to influence the system from within it and things like this. There's this tendency with a lot of the conspiratorial thinking to go into more of a victim mentality, where you're you kind of can point the finger at these big powerful people who are the reason why your life sucks, right? And that's an attractive mindset, for a number of reasons.
Toxic mindset, attracted to losers. I think we should have no shame in calling out toxicity, real toxicity, like that mindset, and just tell them what they are. Not doing their research, loser mindset, not taking responsibility for themselves, not finding areas where they can change their situation, believing that they're being pushed down by some bigger, badder person that has power over them. It's just sad. And you can acknowledge reality without that mindset. And that's why I don't consider myself a conspiracy theorist. Like, I understand that there's something amiss. I'm trying to disrupt that and have a better world, but I'm not going to be a loser. I'm going to take action.
100%. So with that, how is Bitcoin for you I'm gathering the kind of primary action that you see that you're focusing on, that you think is the most meaningful for your life. How has it changed you personally? Like, if you think back on the person that you were before, when you're driving up to, was it Mount Shasta that you were driving up to?
Yeah, Mount Shasta.
That guy, and who's talking to me now. Is there a pretty stark contrast? Are you?
I think. Yeah, no, I think like I think that, again, the money technology that you adopt really has a very strong impact on your behavior, because that's the main influence or incentive on your life. Like, there's so many, sayings about, like, money doesn't grow on trees. Like, the only thing guaranteed is, death and taxes. Like, money runs the world. Like, all of this stuff like that, the world is oriented on measuring and transferring value. That's what money is. So the monetary technology that you are adopt, or you're forced to adopt. So if you live in, a country that has terrible fiat and they are mandating you that you adopt terrible monetary technology, like, it'll affect how you behave. It'll affect how you think. It'll affect your immediate and long-term priorities. So of course, adopting Bitcoin as a monetary technology for my life is going to affect every aspect of my life. In my personal experience, I think that it's amplified me. Like, it's amplified the best in me. For example, I've always been ambitious. I've always, felt like I've been a leader. I've always liked to, take action. But, I used to work and hate my job and, half-ass it, and then go home and try hard at my own hustle. Now I was like, I'm aligned. Like, I not only found something I'm passionate about that I can grind on 24/7, but I also, found a job working it. I've aligned myself so well. And like, I truly learned how to network. Bitcoiners network like no other. Like, every Bitcoiner can take their networking skills that they learn from Bitcoin and then be a professional anywhere else. They'll be the top 10 networker, thought leader in any of those spaces. Like, just being here, you're dealing with people that are operating on 150%, right? And they're energized by Bitcoin. And you're surrounded with those people constantly. Like, how can't you not be better, right? Like, I'm making like 7 podcasts a week, whatever, and I see someone else like kicking my ass and writing 4 more articles than me and doing all this stuff, and I'm just like, holy shit, how do I get better? How do I execute better? And like, that is Bitcoin. And if iron sharpens iron, if you want to start getting really, really sharp, check out the Bitcoin community.
I have to say that really does ring true for me as well, as I've kind of come into this and rub shoulders a little bit with some of you guys. It's inspiring. It really is to be with people who are so aligned in their focus on empowering individuals and a technology that for them is that benefits you, that benefits you yourself by making you wealthy, by enabling you to be your own sovereign individual. But it also sharpens you. It makes you think of all the different opportunities that this technology now provides. And you just like, do you find that it's like almost something you can obsess over, that it has like taken hold of you in some ways?
Yeah, no, I mean, it's kind of like difficult to describe like Bitcoin's impact on you. The best way that I've kind of described it so far is, it's actually pinned to my Twitter, but I just said it's hyper Bitcoinization, and then as an image of circles that are within each other, and at the center is Bitcoin. And
Right.
when you adopt Bitcoin as your monetary technology, you are literally operating from a different like grounding point than the rest of the world. The rest of the world is grounded on the dollar. The rest of the world is in dollarization. So all the circles are grounded to the dollar. And then as a Bitcoiner, you now have this asymmetric situation where you are in tune with reality more, and the rest of the world is still oriented in the fiat facade. And then you are arbing that. Like, that's actually what you're doing, is you're arbing the Bitcoin, the difference between the dollar and Bitcoin. And we're seeing like this standard moving like the people who are oriented around the dollar are slowly waking up, and they're starting to understand to orient around Bitcoin. And I'm in this chat, like I said, I've been chatting with my homies from college about crypto and Bitcoin investing for a long time, and like I'm putting out tweets where like people are measuring different stocks in Bitcoin. And then one of the smartest guys in the group who's long Bitcoin is like, that's absolutely ridiculous. Like Preston Pish, like that, like what a moron. Like, why would he do that? Like, that's not how the world works. I'm like, dude, you're going to start reorienting yourself around this. Like, this is 21 million will start asserting itself as how the world works over time. And I don't think it's going to take that long.
Yeah. How do you see that? How do you see that playing out? I'm with you. I was talking to Gigi about this the other day, and we were kind of riffing about how we joke about how Bitcoiners kind of feel like the crazy ones sometimes, and I feel that way. For a long time, I was the only Bitcoiner that I really knew.
We are oriented around Bitcoin. They're
Right.
oriented around the dollar, and like the reality is there's only one reality. So one orientation is just closer to the reality than the other. So that's why we seem like crazy people. It's crazy though, when you watch all of the financial media now, the mainstream financial media, you have bigwigs getting on there and they're saying Bitcoin oriented things left and right. And there's literally nothing more bullish than I've seen than that. There's that, as well as the plebs who are also touting Bitcoin things. And I know that, you kind of got a taste of 2017, but in 2017, there's the XRP army, right? So I would say a lot of these people are probably now plebs, but it's people who like, they just, the XRP memes were so easy to digest. It was already well aligned with their dollar centric worldview. And they just like, they got behind XRP and were like, the troll army for XRP that has since really disintegrated. And anecdotally, I believe a lot of those people have become Bitcoin plebs, because Bitcoin also has those memes. It also has that worldview. And as those people remain in crypto land, as they hang out with Bitcoiners longer and longer and longer, they start orienting their worldview around Bitcoin. And then all of a sudden they start acting that same way, but for Bitcoin rather than for XRP or some other shitcoin. So just seeing like value investors and macro people orient to Bitcoin, as well as like maybe, not that, like people who are just blue collar people who are just, trying to make an ends meet, people, they just want to have a family. They're also getting it at the same time. Like that happening simultaneously is just, it's so incredibly bullish.
Yeah. I'm eternally grateful to be on this side of the orientation, and kind of looking at things from the inside out. It's extremely exciting to see things develop. Can you kind of break down real quick the XRP issue? I had an old mentor reach out to me, and I've been talking to him about Bitcoin, and he's kind of involved in the oil and gas space. So I introduced him to Steve Barber, and I've been talking about that kind of stuff. But he sent me a text the other day after I was telling him about this event coming up, and he's like, "What do you think of XRP?" And and I've just been so focused on trying to understand Bitcoin that I've just like X'd out. I don't have time to try to understand. Right.
It is a huge scam. But so essentially it is for the people who do not it is the low-hanging fruit coin to buy for people who don't understand what's happening or are too dumb to understand what's happening. It is extremely well oriented with the dollar-centric worldview. It is the compliance coin. It's the banker's coin. It's established, has a world-class team out of San Francisco, well-funded with all the best VCs. The token has already pumped blah, blah, blah amount. They don't understand any of the fundamentals. They don't understand the open source nature of any of this stuff. They don't understand the trustlessness nature of any of this. It's just an easy thing for someone who hasn't done their homework to latch onto. So, if those people can get emotional about XRP and then learn that XRP is bullshit, and they can get emotional about Bitcoin instead, because, obviously Bitcoin has so much more fundamentals behind it. Like, I find that to be very bullish, right? Because that means Bitcoin is becoming understandable. Bitcoin's becoming digestible, that even not to say like a lower IQ person, but even a lower IQ person can become a Bitcoiner. And then guess what happens? They start sharpening and becoming a higher IQ person because of Bitcoin. Straight up. Like, I've seen it happen many, many times. It's happened to me. Like, I think I've upped my effort, passion, IQ, everything, experience up just because of Bitcoin. I can point to that specifically.
Yeah, dude, it is fascinating. Like, it truly is. There's nothing that is bad for Bitcoin at this point. It seems like no matter what kind of shitcoin is out there, like, it's just drawing people's attention to think about this type of thing. And the more they investigate it, it sparks their curiosity, and it's ultimately going to lead to Bitcoin, because that's where the truth is. That's where the value truly is.
Yeah, I mean, I believe that.
Really cool.
There's a lot of podcasts where I rant on that. I think at the Bitcoin Matrix, I did a very good job of articulating why shit coins are good for Bitcoin. So go listen to that.
Yeah, I like that episode. So we can pivot a little bit. You're on your Twitter profile, you say you're a home cooking advocate. It's an interesting combination to be so involved with Bitcoin, but to be a publicly proclaimed home cooking advocate. Are you gonna?
Why is that weird?
Actually, it's not that weird, but it was surprising. So
do you cook?
I do cook. Yeah, I love it. I think it's really important. But what kind of drew you to start making your own food? And
so, yeah, I mean, I have my dad to thank. My dad's a professional chef, and he's one of those guys that, we want to go to this restaurant. It's like, oh, let's just make that at home. We'll figure it out. And, he'll make it amazing. So, like, how, again, predisposed really. But I just, as a millennial, I see our generation, everyone doing DoorDash and whatever, and like, working for a startup, they'll feed you and you're always eating junk like delivery, and all of this stuff. And I think that home cooking, one, is very responsible with your money because it's so much cheaper than buying food that's prepared. So you can stack sats, you can stack a lot more sats, or you can save dollars. You can save a lot more dollars. So it's truly like, just like, it will change your financial situation big time, is going to, just moving a lot of your cooking or a lot of your consumption to home cooking and preparing your own meals. But two, like, I just really believe it to be like a cornerstone thing of like your life, because if you are truly in tune with your body, if you are truly like healthy, like you have to prepare your own food and you have to understand what you're consuming, and what you eat becomes you, right? So like that, if you can just master making, feel comfortable and competent in making food that you like and is tasty, which is really not that hard to do, like you're just going, that one activity is going to change your life across the board. And I really do think like adopting home cooking is like very, very aligned with like adopting Bitcoin. And we have a Telegram group called Citadel Chefs. There's like
Oh, no.
150 Bitcoiners in there now. It's super active, but everyone's always posting like the most incredible food. Like I started it with Joe Rogers, and like I've been 10 upped, not just one up. Like I thought I was a great cook, man. They're kicking my ass. So like
So
there's some
sharing
really,
recipes
really
and
good
everything?
sharing recipes, just posting pictures, like
That's
just
rad.
some incredible like fine dining going down in Citadel Chefs. So I think a lot of Bitcoiners adopt home cooking too. They all, a lot of them are about self-sustaining themselves, again, stacking sats. I think a lot of people have said they've quit ordering takeout because they wanted to save more money and buy Bitcoin, and that is a forcing function to make you start home cooking too. So I mean, I know I kind of went around in a circle there, but I just find it to be such a valuable activity and such a good thing to add to your personal repertoire that is going to have overweight positive value on your life.
Right. And of course, you're only cooking meat, right? There's no anything.
So I mean,
You're purely
Michael,
carnivore.
I'm definitely not a pure carnivore by any means, but Michael Goldstein had a really good quote that really resonated with me. He was like, now that I'm a carnivore, like I look at a donut and it doesn't even register as food anymore to me. And I wouldn't say like I'm a full carnivore. I definitely like whole foods. I like to buy vegetables, fruits, meats, butters, like I want to buy like the most basic ingredients and then turn them into something good. And like I was walking around the store with my fiance, and we're looking at, going down the frozen food aisle. Like there's these like Smucker jam stuff. And both of us are like, that's literally not food. That's just like, it's like chemicals. So,
Yeah.
I'm not a carnivore, but I definitely am about like healthy whole foods. And I appreciate meat and fat. Like I think the keto diet and I forget the name of it. But it's the caveman diet. It makes a lot of sense.
Primal or
Paleo.
paleo.
Yeah, I mean
Paleo.
that stuff makes a lot of sense to me. But like I just like food too much to just go only meat. Like, I'll eat a little bit of poison just because it's tasty.
Yeah, man. I mean, we're here, we're living life. Like, there's some people take a very sanitary view of life, like trying to perfect every single aspect of things. And I don't think that's possible. So it's kind of a fool's errand. And not to say like you want to be sloppy or anything, but and kind of you can definitely make some big mistakes, especially with diet. But you also, I mean, we're living life. Like we gotta enjoy it.
No, I agree. I like to be directionally right and I don't obsess about being perfectly right.
Interesting. So can you describe that? Like, what do you mean by directionally right? Do you, because what that brings to mind to me is this idea of, Jordan Peterson talks about, he points out how in the Bible, this idea of sin is kind of missing the mark. It's the Hebrew word for sin can also be used in the sense of describing like a marksman shooting an arrow and missing the mark. And so it's almost like you're aiming for something or miss when you're not aiming for something, you're like kind of you're messing up and you're sinning. Is that kind of how you think about it?
Well, I would orient it to, I try to be really, really nice to myself. And I understand that life is about small incremental wins, and always having a good attitude. So I just try to optimize for that. And like, I always want to put myself in a situation to win and move on rather than put myself in a situation where like I'm setting myself up for failure. So going all me, like I'm just setting myself up for failure. I'm just not going to follow that. And then I'm going to like go to something, I'm going to like deflect and do something the opposite, because that's just my mentality. So just be super easy on myself, slowly move myself towards a healthier and healthier diet, and kind of reprogram my brain. And I just want to, seek truth and then go in that direction. I don't have to be perfect immediately. And I don't know. I think it's been working for me so far.
100%. I like it.
Stacking sats is kind of like that too. You are foregoing immediate rightness and buying at the perfect time in order to put yourself in position to be right in the long term. So I think stacking sats very much fits that mentality.
Definitely. And that's an approach to, well, I'm just reflecting on my personal journey so far and Bitcoin and stacking sats, and trying to understand how to secure my private keys properly, and learn more about open source software, digital privacy, all of these new aspects of things. And it's like, it is this journey that you have to be gracious with yourself on it, because like what Matt Odell tweeted a while back he's like, my Bitcoin journey has been one massive mistake after another, and just learning from that, something along those lines. And
Matt is such a wise dude.
Wise. He's great. Yeah.
There's a lot of young, wise people in Bitcoin. It's really beautiful to see. Makes me bullish on the world.
It really does. And I was telling Brian last night when we were talking, that what I find just so over. Compelling.
That was a miss. I should have come hung out with
you.
Yeah,
man. We were down in Anaheim. Well, we're gonna meet up again, I think maybe Saturday or Sunday. So
keep in touch. Me.
Yeah, well, maybe we'll try to get like a little impromptu meetup mastermind going. Yeah, like
I run the SF Bitcoin meetups right now.
You do?
Pull people over to the beach. Yeah. we always go to Ocean Beach and have drinks and hang out.
Nice. Yeah, Brian was getting me on board to work on a Chicago thing. The primary hurdle is finding a venue, because Chicago is such a authoritarian mess right now. As I'm sure SF is. Are you guys just doing?
Go to the beach.
Just going to the beach.
Tell them to bring a blanket. Yeah. It's cold.
Yeah, I wish I could do that in Chicago. Everyone's got to bring their own like igloo or like parka.
Yeah, no, it's not as cold, unfortunately. It's easy to just tell people to go to the beach in California, even in the Bay.
Yeah, for sure. Before we sign off here, I just have one other question that I'd like to bring up is, and Peter Thiel came up with this question. I love it. It's, what do you believe or know to be true that no one else believes?
Yeah, that's a good question. So I don't know if no one else believes this, but I just believe it a lot. I actually got it tattooed on my leg. On my leg, it says, the key of life is to know nothing. And I think a lot of that kind of has to do with my take on conspiracy theories, is like, you always need to be open to that reality is not true. So I just always am trying to question reality. And I think that, we always have to be humble to the limitations of our knowledge, and even science, is extremely limited. It's just our observations of the world based on a very specific vantage point and methodology. And how close is that to reality? And we always have to try to assess like perspective, knowledge, and understanding, and then try to understand like how close it is to reality. So that's why I think the key of life is to know nothing. It's just to, understand that you truly don't know anything. Your amount of knowledge is limited, broken, and failed, and you need to be continually open to new information to readjust and try to get closer to reality.
Do you feel that there's a possibility that, well, how to phrase this, with Bitcoin maximalism, it seems to be a pretty solid, almost irrefutable stance of like, this is truth. This is the way to look at, this is the point of view from which to look at the world right now. The most optimal way to view reality and to transact value and to store your wealth. And I'm fully bought into it, right? But I like to keep the open.
Does Bitcoin maximalism fit into my know nothing worldview? And the answer is no. So I've diverted from pure Bitcoin maximalism, although I think that there's a lot of truth, and Bitcoin maximalists are extremely right about Bitcoin itself, and they're extremely wrong about what is actually good for Bitcoin. And my take on altcoins and the altcoin ecosystem, which I personally think is part of Bitcoin, I think illustrates that. But on top of that, like, I can't have such an absolute point of view, although there is an insane amount of truth and signal in 99% of the methodology. And that's why I very much do align with that. And, I'm happy to, like, my favorite people are maximalists, really. Like, I really do associate and align with maximalists. But, I just think Bitcoin's nature is so much more open and permissionless than what maximalists will have it be. Like, so many maximalists are like, bring in the SEC, like, for all this shit. I'm like, that is such a statist perspective. And I understand they're trying to, protect investors. They're giving fantastic investment advice. And they understand very well about like how not to compromise for Bitcoin. And maximalists are fantastic for Bitcoin. Like the maximalist institution, Michael Saylor calls them cyber hornets. They are very bullish for Bitcoin, but like that doesn't necessarily mean their world view is 100% true.
Yeah. Do you think that if there's one thing that you could point out to people to maybe pay attention to, or to kind of be a little more open, what would it be? If say we're taking a Bitcoin maximalist who is completely closed off to any other, I don't know, and I don't know what they're varying.
So I think Bitcoin maximalists, their preference is to use absolute best practices when it comes to operating with Bitcoin.
Okay.
Which is fantastic. I love the best practices. Guess what? Bitcoin is permissionless, and it is impossible to use Bitcoin wrong. And you can't stop someone from using Bitcoin in a certain way. And that's where we see all the other shit that Bitcoin maximalists hate. But guess what? That's Bitcoin's literal nature. So I love the best practices for Bitcoin. I really do. I love the best practices for investment advice. Like, no one gives better investment advice than Bitcoiners. Dollar cost average into Bitcoin what you can afford to lose. That is how you should play this. So you don't get wrecked now and you're insured to win in the future, because this is a long-term game. So I mean, yeah, dude, Bitcoin maximalists are obsessed with Bitcoin best practices. They will protect Bitcoin to the death. That's fantastic for Bitcoin. That's fantastic for people who want to learn about Bitcoin. That's not reality. Reality is Bitcoin is permissionless, and you can't stop someone from using Bitcoin not according to the best practices. And they're going to put it on shitcoins. They're going to trade against it to have a shitcoin. They're going to collateralize it. They're going to rehypothecate it. They're going to put it in a closed wall garden. They're going to do whatever because Bitcoin is literally permissionless money. That's what Bitcoin is.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, 100%. But what I think is awesome is there's no censoring people calling out the bullshit in those things. And the maximalists are always going to have their voice. So
the intolerant minority is very good for Bitcoin.
Yeah,
I like to think of the world in Bitcoin terms and what is good for Bitcoin, not necessarily what's good for individuals. And that's why I'm not such a hardliner on the maximalist on the investment advice.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Well, CK, I want to be respectful of your time, man. Thanks so much for coming on. This is great. Hopefully, hopefully we can talk again. I know we didn't get it.
It was a fun rip.
Yeah. I did want to dive into the central bank digital currencies stuff because I'm not very well versed on any of that at all, and I think that's very prescient.
Well, have me on again. Invite Ansel Lindner to your show. He will truly educate you. To the listeners, go to Bitcoin Magazine podcast, subscribe to that, and listen to FedWatch. It comes out every single week. Thanksgiving Day, I don't know when this is coming out, but Thanksgiving Day we'll put out an interview with Jeff Booth, which is absolutely fantastic and reorienting, to say the least. So very much worth a listen. And we talk all about central bank digital currencies, compare them to Bitcoin, give you updates on where they're at and who's interested in them and who's taking them seriously and what Jerome Powell thinks about it. We do all of that on FedWatch. So very good resource.
Awesome. Yeah, I'll put links to those shows and of course Bitcoin Magazine and your Twitter and everything in the show notes as well. So.
Yeah, and I'll show them right now too. Why not? Follow me at CK_snarks. Follow at Bitcoin Magazine, and yeah, we tweet a lot and share our content all the time. So that's a pretty good place to follow us is on Twitter.
Great. Thanks so much.
Have a good one, John. Peace.
You too.
All right, you guys, I hope you enjoyed that conversation with CK. I had an amazing time talking with him. I think that he is just doing some amazing work with Bitcoin Magazine, sifting through all the noise and really staying true to the ethos of Bitcoin and freedom and what this movement is all about. Be sure to check him out at CK_snarks, SNARKS on Twitter. And check out the Bitcoin Magazine and his other podcasts, POV Crypto and FedWatch with Ansel Lindner. If you guys like the show, feel free to hit the like button and subscribe. And you can also leave a review and share it with your friends if you'd like. It's very much appreciated. For more information about the show and about upcoming events, be sure to check out thebitcoinpath.com. And until next time, may you live a meaningful life and enjoy your freedom as a sovereign individual.